Hi, everyone. 2.5 years ago, Remy Berthaud and I had the idea to create a conference dedicated to open source businesses. We're now preparing for the third edition of Open Source Founders Summit and started this video series to showcase the kinds of conversations between leadership and open source companies that happen at the event. If you would like to be part of the conversation, you should join us May 18th and 19th in Paris. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily O'Meara. I'm your host. This is the Open Source Founders Summit video podcast series, and I'm talking with Dominique from Drop Solid and David from Expanso. Thank you both for joining me. And actually, before we jump in, can you introduce yourselves just a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm Dominique, CEO from Drop Solid AI. It's a spin-out company from my first company, also open source based company. I've been in web. I think I built my first website in 2003. Joined Drupal community in 2007, and yeah, I've been ever since in open source.
Hi, I'm David Aronchick.
David?
I'm oh, sorry. There's a little bit of lag. Sorry. I'm David Aronchick. I'm co-founder of Expanso, and based on the open source project Bacalhau. This is I've been doing open source for quite a while. I worked as the first non-founding PM for Kubernetes and started Kubeflow. And I've done both startups and every hyperscale cloud now, one twice. So I've kind of seen both ends of the spectrum.
Excellent. So I have a question for you that is about AI. What do you think AI is changing for open source?
Yeah, a lot, I think. So 2 weeks ago, I was at the Dev Days in Athens, and we had a Q&A on stage. Dries Buitaert, the founder of the Drupal project, and myself, we were the panel being interviewed, and the same question came from all the developers. So yeah, I think yeah, it's changing. It's changing a lot. It's the way we are building, the way we are deploying, maintaining, the way we are selling. Like yeah, like everything's being accelerated. Like a lot of the existing web is becoming infrastructure for the AI. So yeah, in generally, I think a lot is pretty transformative.
Yeah, I think to extend to that point, so many of the norms of open source were established at a certain time and place. I mean, you look back at the most successful open source project of all time in Linux, and even today they don't do pull requests, right? They do email merges, right? So it's just that was the way to do it, and that allowed them to maintain this ridiculously high level of quality, but also was really constrained. There were a small number of maintainers who could have authority to go through it. Now, almost every open source project I know that has any traction is dealing with literally an order of magnitude or more submissions, issue submissions, pull requests, things like that, CI runs on a daily basis. And I think that, I mean, there are many things changing about this, but AI in particular has accelerated the need for supportive tooling for the very thankless job of being an open source maintainer and developer. And that said, I will say that it's also made that job much easier. Like, I can go and look at a pull request and say, hey, go do your first pass on this and tell me how close it is, and it'll do a pretty good job. So, but it is changing very much the way we work.
Yeah, and for example, in the Drupal community, like there's like a big discussion, and I imagine it's in a lot of communities happening. How to manage this? Like a lot of core committers are, you know, rightfully concerned on what's getting in, and we want to maintain the high level of quality. But at the same time, and then Dries was telling this story, like he actually started to find. problems to solve in the Drupal core, and he solved it with AI and contributed the code to yeah, made pull requests and then for the maintainers. But at the same time, he said like, yeah, we don't submit anything that we don't understand. So that's a bit of the mutual understanding that I see happening. So it's okay to use AI. I think it's good. It's accelerating, but at the same time, we don't want to overburden the maintainers with AI slop. And everything that's being submitted has to be, understood and quality work. So that's really important, I think, to keep things healthy.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
I think it's. Oh, please, sorry, Emily. Go ahead.
well, I was going to ask about AI and what it changes for open source business. So, one of
Mm,
the topics that has come up is that with AI coding tools, code becomes less valuable. So, what
mm,
that means in potentially in practice is that the barrier to entry for some random person to copy, maybe copy is the wrong word, to create the equivalent of their favorite SaaS platform or their favorite software, period, is lower. The interesting question in the context of open source businesses is, does that make everyone, the fact that the code isn't necessarily the moat, does that make all software companies a little bit more like open source companies already are?
what a provocative statement, and I think you're probably closer to right than wrong. I mean, I do very much think there will be a flattening and an expectation about exactly where you provide value. I mean, I think the uncomfortable truth about a lot of stuff is that lots of it, what you were always selling was not the code or the binary. You were selling trust. You were selling the fact that you were going to stand behind it. And nothing has proven that more than open source, right? Red Hat was bought for $26 billion, and they have nothing proprietary, right? They were entirely like, we're going to stand behind this version of Linux in this particular way. Um, so I agree. I think there are a lot of things there, and yeah, I can vibe code up HubSpot or Salesforce or SQL Server or whatever it is in a weekend. Am I going to trust my business on it? Hell no. So I think you bring up a really, really interesting point. I think what it's doing is it's really distilling down what you're paying for. And at some point, I will trust it, right? I will. And then we start to get into really hard conversations. But I don't think that's going to come anytime extremely soon.
By the way, David, can you move your camera just a little bit so we can see your whole face?
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that was not.
That's better.
Yeah, great answer, David.
What? So
By the way,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say at Drop Solid, what are you seeing like when you sell stuff? Obviously you're open source and so on. What are you selling value as, or where are people paying for the most?
So there's two parts. There's on the pass level. So for the infrastructure, providing infrastructure. So if you come to us, we stand behind running your Drupal, Mautic, me, open digital experience platform stack. We run that for you with
Mm,
the AI, with the open source AI tools as well, bring the observability. So that's all platform as a service. So making sure that your open source tech runs well to run a digital
mm,
experience platform. And then on the SaaS level, coming with out of the box use cases that deliver value right away. Like for example, in a digital experience platform,
mm,
customers use it to answer questions to their users, with AI, but based on their own content. They use it partially also as an intranet to have their employees answers to customers. They use it for marketers to, there's a new policy update, there's a new document, you need to roll it out. We have 10,000 pages. When you want to keep everything up to date, okay, applying the AI to that use case. And then obviously there's like the whole relevance, marketing automation, customer data, personalization engine type of use case where you're increasing engagement and you're providing growth for the company. So yeah, providing value is both on the infrastructure level and on making it just easy to unlock the value AI is bringing, and but still providing the freedom that you can move your entire stack. If Dropsolid is tomorrow, for example, bought by a US company and the EU customer doesn't like that, they can just move the entire stack.
Yeah, I think that's
So
a very interesting point. And again, I think it comes down that even that is the future. So when Claude gets good enough to do everything that you just described, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to still pay you, right? Like I'd pay you to babysit Claude. I don't want to get an expert on this. I don't want to know exactly how to tweak Claude in the following way to get the answer, because it's core to my business. So I'm either going to hire someone to do that, or I'm going to pay you to do it.
yeah, and I also think it's like a lot of people think like, yeah, it will generate applications on the fly and throw it away, but it looks like this is super expensive to do. Like, why not just
Oh,
use open source that already does all that and use it as a Rails system that's maintained, and a company stands behind that and does that for you, and then you build the value on top of it, and you still use all these tools. And then even for the service providers, I think that's also a really interesting story, because they can also use all these tools to ship so much custom scope to the customers on top of all that. So unlocking even more value. So once the customers figure that out and deploy the budgets into that direction, they get so much more for their money. That's what I think. But yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, and
David,
I
you
think
brought
it. Go ahead.
the lag. David, you brought up a really important issue, which is that people pay for because they trust you.
Mm.
And I wanted to pull this out because it's something that often comes up in the context of open source businesses as one of the advantages that open source brings. So because people are able to inspect what you're doing, they're more likely to trust you. Incidentally, this is an advantage that you don't get if you spin up a proprietary software using if you do it fast using an AI coding tool. You can still keep that proprietary, and then nobody's going to trust you because they can't examine it. Whereas if
Mm.
you have an open source code base, one of the things that you can get as a company from that is increased trust from your community, from your, shall we say, your audience, because it's not just from your customers who are paying you.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear your opinion. Like, how important is trust, and what exactly does trust mean when in the context of a commercial relationship?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. The old phrase in enterprise software is, do you have one throat to choke, right? It's 2 o'clock in the morning and something is down. Where can you go? And depending on how important that 2 o'clock in the morning service is, you're going to pay for someone to stand behind it. And so I think trust is everything. Whether or not it's I have to trust an open source project. I have to trust developers. I have to trust that lots of other people are using it, that they're not faking their GitHub stars or whatever, like so on and so forth. And I will say that humorously, the old phrase from the cathedral at the bazaar years and years and years ago, or maybe this was Stallman. I can't remember. Some luminary said, many eyes makes all bugs shallow, right? And I think that was a lie that we told a lot of people for a long time, because sure, I could go in, somebody could go in and go look at this thing and figure out exactly what was going wrong here and here. But like, let's be honest, most of the time they didn't. And the proof is right now, where you have AI going and digging into, 15-year-old bugs that have been there, that were in open source, and nobody fixed them, nobody filed them, nobody anything. Like, they were there already, and it was completely open source. So make no mistake, like, just because it is open source, it is not available. But further, it allows, what I will say is AI gives me, and open source in particular, gives me the ability to trust even more, right? I feel like we get to cheat because, an AI gets to go look at my entire code base. It gets to suggest things. It gets to advise like performance issues or things that I might run into. It gets to hear about a bug that somebody reported, and I say, hey, here's this bug. Do you see any other places that might be affected by this bug, or any other patterns that this comes to? So we have a pipeline in Expanso. We have a pipeline system that requires writing your own pipelines. I get to write examples faster than anyone in the world that actually work against our production platform, because the AI goes and looks at the actual code that will be executing this pipeline and makes sure, not just from our public demos, but that it actually works, And so, in some ways, the trust, first off, I mean, the direct answer to your question is trust is enormously important. Arguably, it's the only thing. But what comes after it is, how do we build even more trust with these tools? And I think, we're at a rare and special opportunity to do so.
I think sometimes the thing with trust and open source isn't necessarily that everyone will actually look at your code, but they think that because it's possible, that must
Yeah,
mean that you're more honest. And
totally.
I think that the other thing is, many open source projects, not all, but many, require quite a bit of skill in order to understand them, such that the majority of people who are out there potentially examining them, in fact, might not understand what's going on. And there's a huge barrier to entry for somebody who's not an expert in that particular code base.
I totally agree. When Java came out in can't remember when that was, 93, 94, something in the 90s. Everyone said, oh, run once, write once, run everywhere. It's going to be the solution to everything. But nobody did that. They all ran it on Sun hardware. Like, it was just the offer of being able to go and look at multiple things that would really matter.
Do you want to add anything, Dominique?
Well, I think the AI tools make it possible to dig yourself into the code base. So I haven't been coding for the last 10 years, but yeah, using these tools, you could, you know, just start asking questions and start understanding how it works. Okay, you still have your background and you start from somewhere, but I think it would be really easy now to get up to speed now if I would choose to become a developer again with these tools. Yeah, I think it would be. Otherwise, maybe it would to take you another 6 months to get up to speed again. But like right now, you could just start diving in and maybe be productive in a couple of weeks. And
One
then
last
on.
question. Oh,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
all
Yeah.
right. One last question before we finish up. What are you most looking forward to talking about at Open Source Founders Summit, which is in a week and a half now, 2 weeks?
Yeah, last year for me, it was eye-opening to see so many open source founders figuring out the same stuff, and I think it will be super valuable to connect with them again on like all these topics, going from sales, marketing to product development to how is AI impacting is, and just get fresh ideas and just go back and then process everything and maybe adjust the strategy with what we've learned.
Yeah, it really is one of my favorite conferences of the year because, I mean, if nothing else, I get to discover like many projects that I wasn't aware of. I will say this about open source founders: we are terrible at marketing, just terrible. We could all do much better. But I will say that it's nice to commiserate with other people, like the problems that you have, never like always seem unique, and they almost never are. And that's something that I love to hear and see how other people approached it and see how we can maybe make it better.
Awesome. We'll wrap it up there. I'm looking forward to seeing both of you at the summit in less than 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Me too.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.